This tutorial is a series of videos. This video is part 1 where we will use the freeform item to create a custom countertop display. We'll show you how to start with nothing but a baseline, and end with a completed project. Among other things, we will go through the steps and shortcuts you can use to speed things along. We will create the flaps which will be used for the front, sides, back and bottom. You'll also learn how to adjust the height and points of the flaps using the active section and active point properties. To get started, left-click on the box icon with the plus sign.
In this video series, I'm going to show you some ways that you can create things in SAI Box and Display. What we're going to do is create a countertop display, and there's several videos out there showing how to do different things, but I'm going to just show you a method that I would use when creating this display, and maybe learn some tricks along the way. So I'm going to start with a freeform item. So I'm going to click on my little plus sign on the box there, and that brings up this screen. And so one of the first things that I want to do when I start a job like this is I want to go to the materials, and I'm just going to go into this thickness, and I'm going to set me a thickness that's pretty good thickness so I can see what's going on with my object, because sometimes when it's too thin you don't quite get all the offsets and everything right. So what I want to build here is I want to build a display that is 455 millimeters long, 55 millimeters high in the front, 200 millimeters deep, and 220 millimeters in the back. So it's kind of a slope side display, and we're going to do that relatively quickly. I'm going to show you again what I would do in this situation. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to close this material so that I don't need that open, and then I'm going to go to the dimensions. I'm going to change the baseline to 455. That gives me my starting width, and I'm going to use this baseline as the front of my display. So what I want to do is right click on this line, and at line I'm going to add a basic flap, and I'm just going to drag it up here to where it looks reasonable and let it go. That's going to be my initial flap. Now I'm going to go to this side, and using the Control R, which is the repeat, I'm going to add a flap here, and I'm going to do the Control repeat, add a flap here. I'm going to go down to my bottom here, Control repeat, add a flap here. And you're probably wondering, what in the world is he doing? Well, I'm going to show you. So when you add a flap, you can always go to the period sign to bring up the precision input, or you can use the quick entries, and there's other videos that show how to do this. But one of the ways that I found this really quick to work on these, like I said, I want to make the front 55. So what I'm going to do is, I've got this section selected. I'm going to go over here in my active section where the height is, and I'm just going to type in my 55 and hit tab. That gives me my height. Now you can see the arrow here pointing the direction. That's the height of this flap. So the orientation is always, the hinge line is the bottom and the arrow points to the top. So if you were to turn this up on its end so that it was pointing up, that's how you would get your height. But you just have to get your head around that, and you'll start to discover how easy it is to do these things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click on this one and make it 200 or 200, and then I'll double click on this one and I'll make it 200. So now the next thing I want to do is this flap on the bottom, I'm going to make it 100, which is half of this depth. So we'll make that height 100. Oh. And there we are. So now we've got our front and two sides and part of the bottom. Looks kind of weird, doesn't look anything like what I suggested I was going to make, but you'll start to see it in a moment. So what I'm going to do is, first off, if I go to this flap over here, I want it to be 220 millimeters high. So again, remember the orientation, because your starting coordinates is the lower left hand corner of the flap, and with the arrow pointing in this direction, making this the height, the lower left hand corner would be right here. So that's your 0, 0 point. So if I go to this point here and click on it, and if we look at the active points here, you can see that it's 0 and 200. So that tells you where your point is in coordinates, and so I want to go 220 this direction on the width. So I'm going to go to this point here and simply change it from 55 to 220, and now I've got my slope side there. Now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side, but keep in mind that this is my origin here in this flap, so I'm already 55 inches up. Now I'm going to show you a little trick here, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to this point right here, and it's set to 0, where I want it to be 220 so it matches this size. And you know, I can figure it out, but here's an easy way to do it. I'm going to type in my 220 and then minus 55. You can do math in these, actually do math in the control field here. And so when I hit the tab key, you'll say, oh no, it went the wrong direction though. Well, I'm going to just go back here and put a minus sign in front of this, so that will set it in the right direction. And now I have my two sides. If I go to 3D right now and look at this and fold it up, you'll see that it's folded up. It's got part of the bottom and so on. So we're starting to get to see something here. So let me unfold that, and I'll just set it here, and then I'm going to go back to my construction view. And so on this end I want a glue flap. So what I'm going to do is Control R, or there it is, because the last action that I did was place those flaps. I still have one here, so I'm going to do the same thing on this side, and I'll do Control R, and now I got the flap there. So this one I want to be 455, and this one I'm just going to make this 30, and so I'm beginning to take shape here, and we're starting to see things come together. So okay, I need to add some more flaps to the bottom for these other three flaps. But what I'm going to do here is I'm going to first off, I'm going to double click on this flap, and I want to set the little offset here so that when it folds up it's not bunching up in the corner here. So what I'm going to do is go to my edit offsets, and I want to change the offset on the left and right, both sides. I'm going to click on this checkbox here because I want to make that the thickness of the material. And so when you click on the checkbox, it automatically does the thickness of the material in this box multiplied by this number. So you can go 2 times the thickness, 3 times, or if you leave it unchecked, you can just enter an amount. So I'll click OK. Now what I'm going to do is I've got this tab or this flap here selected, so I'm going to do Control C to copy this one, and then I'll go over here and I'm going to Control V to paste it, and here I'll do the same, and finally on this flap I'll put the bottom one, and now we have a pretty nice starting point for our display here. And I'll just fold it up real quick so we can have a look at it, and there we are. So I'm going to end this video here, and we'll pick up in the next video and make some more changes to our display. But right now it can be used just as it is, so tune into the next video.